Hello, everybody, and welcome to more Political Excess. Let's do another deep dive into a U.S. Senate election, starting to get into some of the more competitive races, and this time let's take a look at Florida. I've already done the governor's deep dive, so you can take a look at that video if you'd like. Some of the information will overlap, but let's get on Ballotpedia and get a little bit of background about this race. The incumbent senator is Republican Marco Rubio, and he is running for re-election to a third term. 6 years ago, when he last won re-election, he won by just under an 8-point margin with 52% of the vote. And his opponent on the Democratic side is Val Demings, and she is currently serving in the U.S. House. So let's go back and take a look at their primaries. Marco Rubio was unopposed in his primary, and Val Demings had a very minimally competitive primary. She won with over 84% of the vote. And there will also be a Libertarian as well as independent candidates on the ballot as well. Let's go down here and see how this race is rated. All three of the main sites, Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, and Larry Sabato, have it at likely Republican. That is my rating as well. It should be an easy 5-point win for Marco Rubio. It's possible it could even get into double digits, but the safe assumption is somewhere in the mid to high single digits. So likely Republican is a fair characterization. We can go down here and take a look at the campaign finance. And as you may have read in the news, this shows us that Val Demings has actually outraised Marco Rubio. Rubio has raised quite a bit himself, but Demings has eclipsed him. So that is certainly worth pointing out. And we can go down here and take a look at how the counties are trending on a presidential level. And I did do this on my governor's video as well, so I'll try to go a little bit quicker this time. But 46.6% of the population lives in 9 counties that are solid Democratic, and those voted for the Democrat for president in the last 3 elections. On the other end, 40.2% of the population lives in 52 counties that voted for the Republican for the last 3 presidential elections. And then there's several counties here that have flipped and have voted for the Democrat or the Republican in only the last 1 or 2 presidential elections. If we go down here and take a look at the county map, the shading does not indicate margins. It just indicates if they voted for the Democrat or Republican for president in the last 1, 2, or 3 presidential elections. And we know Donald Trump has a lot of strong rural counties, especially in the Panhandle. He easily won with over 70% of the vote in many of these counties. Duval County, where Jacksonville is, that is one that has trended toward the Democrats. Pinellas County is a pivotal county. It's usually regarded as more of a swing county. Trump did narrowly lose that last time by 0.2%. And then, of course, Miami-Dade and Broward counties, those are the Democratic strongholds. There's a lot of vote there. However, the margin has actually narrowed and trended toward the right in the last election. So I would expect Rubio to do well in many of these counties. We can go back 6 years ago and take a look at the county map, and Marco Rubio did well. He won Duval, he won Pinellas, he won Hillsborough, and he got 43 or 44% of the vote in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. And if Rubio gets anywhere near these margins that he did 6 years ago, he's in great shape to win re-election. We can also switch over to YouTube and see what they've got on their channels. Here's Marco Rubio's channel. He has some clips from the debate he was in. He has some ads and other media appearances as well. And here's Val Demings' channel. She has some shorts. She has the debate on here. And there's some other audio and miscellaneous clips. And we can also look at their official campaign websites. Here's Marco Rubio's site. Maybe you want to read a little bit more about Rubio, see where he stands on the issues, or pick up some of his merchandise. And here's Val Demings' site if you want to read about her, see where she stands on the issues, donate to her campaign, or maybe you want some Val Demings merch. And how about that debate? Well, there was one, and that's going to be the only debate. It was not that long ago. I did watch it. It was a good back and forth. I think Demings was fired up in that debate to try to make more of a name for herself. Rubio, I thought he had some good energy, and he fended off some criticisms. Again, if you love or hate these candidates, the debates aren't really going to change too much. They're pretty much going to just reinforce the opinion you already had. But there are some swing voters in the middle that are persuadable, and I think the debate is mostly for those voters. And we can get on Wikipedia and take a look at the endorsements. And there's not a lot here for Marco Rubio. He does have the Donald Trump endorsement, but not a whole lot else besides some organizations. Val Demings, she has some elected officials. She has a bunch of organizations herself. And that takes us down to the polling. And in the aggregate, as of the time I made this video, Marco Rubio had a 2.8% advantage on Real Clear Politics. He was at 46.8%, Val Demings at 44%. On 538, he was ahead by 3.8% in the aggregate. So how about the individual polls? Most of these polls here do show Marco Rubio ahead by anywhere from 2 to 7 points. He is barely hitting 50% in some of these polls, so that's not a great sign. And Val Demings is hovering around the low to mid 40s. And let's compare these poll results to the ones back in 2016 to see how they stack up. And again in that race, Marco Rubio got about 52% of the vote. That final SurveyMonkey poll was way off. Quinnipiac did not do too bad in that poll, and the rest of these did show Rubio ahead, usually with a slight lead. There were a few ties here, but they probably did underestimate Rubio by a few points and overestimated Patrick Murphy by a couple as well. And finally, let's get on PredictIt and take a look at the market. And that shows us that Marco Rubio is at 92 cents, Val Demings is down at 8 cents. That is very overwhelming for Rubio. Demings is all but out of this race. So the conclusion is Marco Rubio is very, very likely to win re-election to a third term. I understand the polling is not overwhelming for him. He's not going to win by 15 points. But given the history of the state, given Rubio's electoral history, given the trends, given the national environment, and Rubio is already leading in almost all of the polls, Rubio pretty much has this race wrapped up. Could it get under 5 points if Rubio has a real bad night and Demings surges late? Yeah, that's a possibility. But I do think it's more likely that Rubio wins by over 10 points at this point, as opposed to winning by under 5 points. It will be interesting to see how Rubio performs against Ron DeSantis. They're both going to be on the ballot, and I long thought that Rubio would outperform DeSantis, but at this point I think it's going to be close, and it's possible DeSantis even outperforms Rubio. Demings has raised a lot of money. Earlier in the year, it seemed like there was energy behind her, that she was the right candidate to try to go up against Rubio. She has a background with the police department, so that was supposed to be an added strength to Demings to try to counter the Democrats being soft on crime narrative. But in the end, I don't really think it's going to be all that effective. At this point, Marco Rubio is a household name. Yes, he did try to run for president, and he had minimal success with that. I don't think that's really going to be much of a stain on him for this campaign. I think it's more of what I previously said, that the state has trended a little bit toward the right. And whether you love him or hate him, I think Rubio is probably a decent fit for the state, especially in this kind of political climate. If Rubio lost the seat, that would be a major upset, and it would be an epic blue wave. But considering Bill Nelson, a longtime Democratic senator who lost to Rick Scott in 2018 in that blue wave, that was the best case scenario for a Democrat to win for Senate in Florida, and it didn't happen. These conditions this cycle, they're almost the opposite of what they were 4 years ago. So I really don't see how Demings ends up pulling this out, but I would say he's going to win by mid to high single digits. So anyway, that is a deep dive into this Florida U.S. Senate election. Let me know down below. Are you following this race? Did you watch the debate? What do you think the margin will be for Rubio? Is he in any danger whatsoever? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy this channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.